ਜਸਟਿਨ ਟਰੂਡੋ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਭਾਸ਼ਣ ਵਿੱਚ ਅੱਜ ਜੋ ਅਹਿਮ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਦੱਸੀਆਂ ਗਈਆਂ ਨੇ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਕਿ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਡਿਪਟੀ ਪ੍ਰਾਈਮ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਕ੍ਰਿਸਟੀਆ ਫਰੀਲੈਂਡ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਰੇ ਪ੍ਰੀਮੀਅਰਸ ਨੇ ਬੈਠਕ ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀ। ਕੋਵਿਡ-19 ਦੌਰਾਨ ਇਹ 11ਵੀਂ ਬੈਠਕ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ ਫਰਸਟ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰਸ ਦੇ ਦਰਮਿਆਨ। ਇਸ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਕਿ ਬਜ਼ੁਰਗਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਸੂਬੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੇਕਰ ਕਿਤੇ ਵੀ ਬੁਰਾ ਵਤੀਰਾ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ, ਜਿਵੇਂ ਕਿ ਸੀਨੀਅਰ ਹੋਮਸ ਤੋਂ ਕਿਊਬੈਕ ਤੇ ਓਨਟਾਰੀਓ ਤੋਂ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਆਇਆ, ਉਹ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਵੀ ਬਰਦਾਸ਼ਤ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਵੇਗਾ। ਇਸ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਸੂਬਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਗਈ ਕਿ ਹੋਰ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਬਿਜ਼ਨੈਸਿਸ ਨੂੰ ਖੋਲ੍ਹਣ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਸੁਰੱਖਿਆ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਕੀ ਕਦਮ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਜਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਨੇ, ਤੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਗਈ ਕਿ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਲੱਛਣਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਕੋਵਿਡ-19 ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਛੇਤੀ ਤੋਂ ਛੇਤੀ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਪਛਾਣਿਆ ਜਾ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਿੰਨੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਛੇਤੀ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਵੱਖਰੇ ਤੌਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਰਹਿਣ ਲਈ ਕਹਿ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਜਾਵੇ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਕਿਤੇ ਵੀ ਕੋਵਿਡ-19 ਨਾ ਫੈਲੇ। ਇਸ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਸਥਾਈ ਬਣਾਇਆ ਗਿਆ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਰਿਕਵਰੀ ਹੋ ਜਾਵੇਗੀ ਕੋਵਿਡ-19 ਤੋਂ ਤਾਂ 10 ਦਿਨ ਦੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਪੇਡ ਸਿਕ ਲੀਵ ਵੀ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਜਾਵੇਗੀ। ਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਜੋ ਐਲਾਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਪ੍ਰਧਾਨ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਮੂਲ ਨਿਵਾਸੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ $650 ਮਿਲੀਅਨ ਦੀ ਮਦਦ ਐਲਾਨੀ ਗਈ ਹੈ। ਵੱਖੋ ਵੱਖਰੇ ਤੌਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਉਸ ਮਦਦ ਨੂੰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਜਾਵੇਗਾ। ਮੂਲ ਨਿਵਾਸੀ ਔਰਤਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਸ਼ੈਲਟਰ ਬਣਾਉਣ ਲਈ $85 ਮਿਲੀਅਨ ਹੋਵੇਗਾ।
From day one, our government has been working with the provinces and territories to keep Canadians safe and address this pandemic. And this morning, I want to begin with an update on where this work stands. Yesterday, the Premiers and I, along with Deputy Prime Minister Freeland, had our 11th First Ministers' meeting since this crisis began. We discussed the very concerning reports regarding certain long-term care homes in Ontario and Quebec. What the Canadian Armed Forces reported is deeply disturbing. That any senior would face this kind of treatment is unacceptable. And as I said to the Premiers, our government will be there to support them as we work together to ensure that our elders receive the care they deserve. In our meeting, we also talked about what we need to do together to help businesses reopen and get people back on the job while keeping our communities safe. Moving forward, it will become even more important to quickly identify and then isolate this virus. To do that effectively, we need to coordinate across the country. A number of provinces have already reached out to us for support on contact tracing, and our governments are currently working together on a data sharing platform. And yesterday, First Ministers were briefed on the work being done by the COVID-19 Immunity Task Force, which will coordinate blood test surveys across Canada. The Premiers and I also spoke about support for workers during this difficult time. Our government will continue discussions with the provinces on ensuring that as we enter the recovery phase, every worker in Canada has 10 days of paid sick leave a year, because no one should have to choose between taking a day off sick and paying their bills. This morning, I can announce that we are investing $650 million to support Indigenous communities on healthcare, income support, and new shelters for women. Let me start with the first pillar, which is healthcare. Although we've made progress, there are still communities that are not properly equipped to handle a COVID-19 outbreak, and we need to address that. That's why we're investing over $285 million for public health in First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities. These funds will go toward more nurses, will help procure specialized supplies, and will support work with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities on continued community-driven responses. Having the right health care is essential, but it isn't the only concern facing communities right now. Because of this pandemic, a lot of people also need a hand in paying for the basics. So, as a second pillar of this investment, we are boosting the On-Reserve Income Assistance Program. This money will support people living on reserve who need help paying for things like groceries, cleaning supplies, or rent. A portion of this funding will also help First Nations communities continue to provide services like skills training and support for people as they navigate federal benefits. The work being done in communities by members of the communities is incredibly important to help people get through this very challenging time. And that brings me to the third pillar of this funding, investment in shelters. In April, we announced $10 million so that emergency shelters for Indigenous women and children could adapt to the new challenges posed by COVID-19. This is vital support in the short term. But in the long term, more still needs to be done. So today I can announce that our government is investing an additional $85 million for new shelters for Indigenous women. These shelters will be built in communities across the country, including in the north. No one should have a place to stay when they're unsafe. No one should have a place to stay. No one should have to stay in a place where they're unsafe. No one should be forced to choose between violence or homelessness. These new shelters will offer a path forward when people need it most. We have continued to put Canadian interests and Canadian principles at the forefront of everything we do around the world, including with China. We will continue to work to ensure that Canadians have the equipment that we need to get through this situation, while at the same time expressing our concern for the 2 Canadians arbitrarily detained in China, and continue to highlight our concerns around Hong Kong and around questions that need to be asked for the WHO. We will continue to stand up for our principles and continue to look out for the interests of all Canadians. Okay. Our focus throughout this issue, this pandemic, has been on Canadians, on getting them the support they need, which is why we put out millions, billions of dollars in support for Canadians to help them get through this. I hear clearly the concerns that Canadians have around their air tickets. We will continue to work with the industry and with concerned groups of Canadians to ensure that we find a fair way through this. But I know Canadians at the same time want to make sure we continue to have an airline industry after this very difficult pandemic. Getting that balance right and listening to Canadians is what we will do. What we talked about last night was the importance of ensuring that in the short term we are giving to our seniors all the support they could possibly need through this very difficult pandemic. But we all very much agree that as we move forward, we need to make sure that all of our seniors everywhere across the country get the top quality service and care they deserve, and the federal government will happily be a part of those discussions as provinces lean in on this issue. Okay. We will, as a federal government, ensure that we are there to support the provinces as they work to regain control over senior care in their jurisdictions. The situation going on in Quebec and Ontario is extremely worrisome, and we will be there to help. This is something that all Canadians want to see, and quite frankly, the women and men of our armed forces are there to protect Canadian lives and are happy to be doing it even at risk to themselves. That's what they do, and we should all be incredibly proud of them. At the same time, I have stressed from the beginning that soldiers in our nursing homes is not a long-term solution. It's a short-term fix. And we will continue to work with Quebec and with other provinces to ensure that they are able to regain control over senior care in their provinces. We will continue to be there with them to find solutions for the medium and longer term. We recognize fully that long-term care and senior care is a provincial area of jurisdiction. But all Canadians are united in wanting to see better support for our seniors right now and in the years to come. So we have said at the federal level that we will be there to support the provinces, both in the immediate, whether it's more rent money or more resources or whatever it is that the provinces need to get control once again over their long-term care facilities. There are a number of provinces across the country where, although there have been challenges, there are not nearly the scale of problems that we've seen in other places. So we recognize there is a great variance across the country, but as a federal government, our job is to look out for all Canadians and make sure that everywhere across the country people are supported, and we will be there depending on what the provinces need, what their situation is, to make sure that all seniors are protected. We have seen banks take significant measures on helping Canadians who have difficulties with their mortgages, and we will continue to work with financial institutions right across the country to ensure that they are there to continue to help Canadians. We know that this is a very, very difficult time for many families. We've made available many income supports, but there is always more to do, and we're going to make sure that financial partners are part of the solution to making sure Canadians get through this.
ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਜੀ, ਮੈਂ ਨਿਰਮਲ ਮਾਨ ਪੂਰਾ ਡੈਟ ਸੈਟਲਮੈਂਟ ਤੋਂ। ਇਹ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ ਟੀਵੀ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ। ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੇ ਹੋਰ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਭਰਪੂਰ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਦੇਖਣ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਟੀਵੀ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਚੈਨਲ ਨੂੰ ਸਬਸਕ੍ਰਾਈਬ ਕਰੋ ਤੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੇਠ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਹੋਏ ਬੈਲ ਆਈਕਨ ਦੇ ਬਟਨ ਦਬਾਓ। ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ।